Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Edible Software. Today, we are going to be talking about consignment liquidation. So, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go from end to end, purchasing, using the item in the system, and selling the item to the actual consignment liquidation process. So, the first thing I want to show you before we actually get into the purchasing area is some options that we have when setting up vendors. So for those of you who purchase from vendors pretty consistently on consignment, there is actually a couple of options that you can take note of. The first one is in the accounting tab. So let's say River City Produce. I regularly buy from them on consignment. So if I wanted to, I can put in a standard consignment commission percentage, and that would apply to all items when I purchase from River City Produce. So of course, the consignment commission percentage is essentially what you are withholding when you actually pay out the vendor. So if you wanted to withhold 5% for yourselves, it would deduct that as an expense. So it would not be included in the gross due to the vendor. So I can do that, or I can go a little bit further and I can specify a consignment commission percentage per item if I wanted to. So in the item specification screen, for items that I purchase on consignment, I can specify that individual amount. This, of course, will overwrite or take precedence over the consignment commission percentage for the vendor in here. Right? And then, of course, the last option is the consignment vendor. So you can mark this as a consignment vendor. Really, all this flag does is it automatically flags any purchase order uh, set up for this vendor as a consignment purchase order. So it just takes one step out of the process. Of course, you also have this option: use last settled price for consignment PO. This is just allowing you to set up a standard price, essentially, or a standard cost the next time that you purchase the same item from the vendor. So whatever the last settled price for the consignment item was, that will be the price that pre-populates. So those are a couple of options that you have in the vendor master file. So now what we're going to do is go through and actually start the consignment process. Of course, starting with the purchase order. So I am going to be going through a little bit quickly on this. We have already had trainings on purchases, packouts, and sales, and all that stuff. So if you have any questions on the process of actually creating the purchase order or anything, please refer to our video on creating purchase orders. If you have any if you don't know that video or have not seen that video, let us know, and we will be happy to send you a link to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click New, and I'm going to select the vendor that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the River City Produce. And the first thing I'm going to do is make sure to mark this as a consignment purchase order. So I'm going to mark this as consignment. I'm going to expand this really quickly. And I'm going to start adding items that I'm going to purchase from the vendor. So here I've got 1, here I've got 15. So I'm buying these bouquets. And then here I can put in a consignment commission percentage. Again, this will pre-populate based on those settings we talked about earlier. But here I'm going to go ahead and put in 5%. Here I'm going to go ahead and put in 5%. And we'll leave that as is. I'll click Save. And I'm also going to go ahead and create an add-on PO. Again, that's a different training. There's nothing special as far as creating the add-on PO for consignments. It's the same exact process. So I'm creating an add-on PO for freight to get this inventory in. So I'll do $100, select all, and save. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I'm basically setting up my expenses. I don't want the value of the item or the add-on PO basically adding into the gross due to the vendor, even though it adds value to the item. I want to make sure, since I'm paying that off, that's going to be an expense. So I want to make sure that that's set up. So, and then of course, once the items actually are received into the warehouse, I'll come to the receiving screen, click Edit, make sure I'm working with the correct PO, of course. I'll receive all as ordered and save. Now, of course, as far as anything else goes, adjusting the inventory, uh, adjusting the PO, anything like that, it is all the same process uh, as you've seen in the other videos. So there's nothing different other than making sure that the purchase order is marked as consignment and that you have a commission percentage if you need one. So after the inventory has been received into the system, some of you may use our packout module or processing. So if you purchase something on consignment and you use it in the system, use it in a packout, there is a specific area that it must happen in. As far as everything else is concerned, transferring, adjustments, physical inventory, all of that is exactly the same. So it's really only packouts that we need to take into consideration when talking about consignments. In our packout training, we did talk about when setting up packout standards, you can set up packout standards specifically for consignment packouts. So if you are setting up packout standard and this is for a consignment packout, you can go ahead and mark it as a consignment packout. So here, if I select this bouquet item and I click edit and mark it as a consignment packout, this can be used in my consignment packout screen. Oh, it's already been used before, so I won't be able to select that. So that's okay. But when creating a new standard, you can mark that as a consignment, and it will be used in that consignment packout screen. So now let's go ahead and go there. Inventory packouts, process packouts. Instead of regular packouts, we'll go to consignment packouts. It's pretty much exactly the same screen. Of course, the packout or consignment packout option or flag is flagged. The really the only difference between this and the normal packout screen is you are restricted to only using one lot in the item use tab. So that is one thing that we require when running a consignment packout is you can only use one lot to create another one. So here I'm going to go ahead and add my item. And I'm going to go ahead and use all of it. So let's say my 15. And I'm going to select that lot. Oh, it was 10. Let's go ahead and change that. And you'll see this in the sales screen as well. So when we get to the sales order, you will see this as well. For those of you who are allocating manually, when you open up the lot allocation screen, you'll see this load ID is highlighted in purple, indicating that it is a consignment lot. And there are settings and options and system settings that I'll show you in just a sec that do allow you, for those of you who are running on a FIFO basis, first in, first out, we do give precedence to consignment lots if needed. So I've got my item used, I've got my quantity and my lot selected. So now I'm going to pack this out into my other bouquet item. I know I have a third one. Up here we go. I'll just set it up into this bouquet. So I'm making 10 out of 10. I'm just turning one into the other. And I can click save and post later on if I need to, but in interest of moving on, I'm just going to go ahead and click post. Yes, and okay. All right. So that's if you are using the packout area. For those of you who are not, of course, you could just jump straight to the sales area to sell this inventory. So in order to generate a payable invoice using the consignment liquidation, other than having the lot marked as consignment, another another feature is that you have to actually sell out the entire lot. So you will not be able to generate that payable unless you've sold the entire lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and sell this. So I'll go to sales orders. I'm going to click new. And again, this is also on another video. So any of you who have questions about the sales order process or the pack out process that we just went through, feel free to let us know and we can send you links to those videos. So I'm going to send these bouquets over to Chapel Hill Sausage. I'm going to go ahead and add my items. So I've got my bright summer bouquet and I've got my garden that I'm going to go ahead and sell. So I'll click OK. So here, my bright summer bouquet, 10 bouquets. This one was the 15. 15 bouquets. I'm going to select my lot and click OK. And I don't have to sell all of these on one sales order. Of course, I can sell them on multiple sales orders if I need to. I just won't be able to generate that payable invoice unless the entire quantity is depleted. So double click OK. So as you saw, it went ahead and I allocated to those consignment lots, and I will click save. And now I'm going to go ahead and ship and bill. So I do have to ship and bill this before I can move forward with the consignment liquidation. So again, I'm moving pretty quickly on this. You might have questions about allocation and everything like that. Of course, this is going to be a process. So no worries. If you have any questions, let me know later on and we can talk about that. But once I am shipped and billed, I am able to continue to the next step. So once my inventory is completely sold out, and if I'm creating a payable invoice just for one lot on that purchase order, then that's perfectly fine. I just have to sell out of that lot. I don't have to sell out of the other lots as needed. So if you are generating multiple payables, you can continue on without selling out one of the other items on the PO. But once I am done selling out my lots, I'm going to come to inventory, lock, unlock lots, lock, unlock lots. So this screen is completely for the, specifically for the consignment liquidation process. So I'm going to look up by my vendor, which was River City Produce, not Reza. There we go. If I scroll down to the bottom, I can see these two items that I had purchased. So I'm going to go ahead and lock both of these. Oh, so this is a good step. Your add-ons actually need to be billed before you can lock as well. So I'm glad I ran into that. So here really quickly, I'm going to go and bill my add-on. And again, if you have questions about this, we have had a training video on this as well. So let us know and we will go ahead and walk you through this as well. $100, my invoice date, select that add-on I created, apply to all and save. Oop. There we go. So now let's go back to lock, unlock lots. And now I should be able to lock these. So you can click on this. You can click on this button on the left side to lock a lot, or of course you can just select the line and hit lock lot. Same exact thing. And then of course if you click the lock sign again, it unlocks it. Same thing over here. So this button and these buttons do exactly the same thing. And of course, as you saw, I can look up by inventory items. I can look up by load ID or vendors. If I select a vendor and I want to filter by a specific PO, I can do that as well. So all of these are just different ways to filter the screen so you can unlock these lots or lock those lots. So once I have locked my lots, I can now go into the consignment liquidation area. So payables, consignment liquidation. For those of you who are on earlier versions of Edible, you might remember that the consignment liquidation is also in the reports area. So if you do not see it in here, check the AP reports area and it will be there. So we'll go ahead and open that up. The first thing I'm going to do once I'm in the screen is click New. I'm going to select that vendor that I purchased the inventory from, and it's going to create a CLR number. So Edible is going to generate that number. So here I can go ahead and start looking for my PO. So I'm going to click Add PO, and you will work with the tabs left to right. So the first thing you're going to do is select your purchase order. Click OK. Once you have your PO selected, it will show you your lots on that purchase order and whether or not they are eligible to be included in the CLR. So here, as long as I have no across the board, it is not unlocked, it is not billed, and it is not currently in a CLR, I have the ability to include it. And just like I said before, I can just include one lot if I wanted to, or I can include all. So in here, I have my add-on. All right, I apologize. I have my lot up here. It shows me the quantity and the price currently. So it shows me my direct usage and then my pack out and my add-on. So it does use the price used for that add-on in here, and I can see that commission percentage. If for any reason this is incorrect or I need to change this, I can go ahead and correct the price. So if this needs to be $55.90, I can put in a corrected price as needed. So those are my prices. And then, of course, I can come to my expenses and see any expenses. So again, here's that add-on that is already, there's that add-on. If the vendor said that they would repay me for the add-on, then I can go ahead and remove the expense item if I wanted to. Otherwise, I want to make sure that I'm uh, including that in my expenses. If there's anything else that you needed to add as an expense item, if there was any charge that you wanted to include to make sure that you are keeping as much as you can from this, you can add an expense item from here. And basically, this is adding any add-on code that we have set up under code maintenance, as well as the system generated ones like labor and your commissions. Those are system generated, but you can put in a corrected amount to add that expense item. And then, of course, at the very end, I see my report totals, so I can see my total sales. I can see less my total expenses. So this is my gross due to the vendor. And then, of course, if I had any advances, if I had created an open check or anything like that, or an open credit that I'm going to apply to this invoice once it's created, I can go ahead and write in that amount. This is strictly for reporting purposes. It's still going to generate the payable with the gross due to the vendor, but for reporting purposes, you can enter in that advanced amount. So of course, your gross due to the vendor less your advances would give you your net due to the vendor. So at this point, I can go ahead and click Save. It's a pending consignment liquidation, so I can leave this be for now. I can go do whatever I need to, but once I am sure that I am ready to create this payable, I'll come back to this same consignment liquidation screen under Payables. I'll hit Select and select my pending CLR, and I'll go ahead and click Approve. Now, of course, if I needed to delete this and just start over, I could delete this and move on from there. But here, I clicked Approve. It has my vendor already selected, my total amount selected. It'll have my PO line selected. So all I need to do is enter in an invoice number, enter in an invoice date, apply the amount, and it will already calculate my updated item. And so from here, I can go ahead and click save. So it's just like any other payable invoice, as long as the balance remaining to distribute is 0, I can go ahead and click save. And once it is part of my inventory payables, it is just that. It is a vendor invoice and acts exactly like a vendor invoice created from scratch. Now from here, I can go ahead and print or preview this consignment liquidation report and keep that for my files. So here, just to see the preview. Apologies, just takes a second on my end to load up. Here we go. So here, of course, it's giving me my PO number that I selected, or my PO numbers that I selected if I had multiple. It would show me all of my line items. It'll show me the quantity, the price. It'll show me if it was used in a pack out or anything like that. And then it'll give me my sales totals. So it'll give me my expenses. So of course it gives me all of my totals down at the bottom, my total sales, my expenses, my gross, and my net. So of course, again, that less advances, if I had any advances, would print out that as well. So that is pretty much it, step by step, as far as the commissions go. Or consignment liquidation goes. If you have any questions, let us know. Of course, some of those steps you may not use, depending on whether or not you use packouts or anything like that. But that is essentially the consignment liquidation process. Thank you all for joining me today. I hope you have learned something. And if you have any questions, again, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you about it. Again, have a great day, and we will see you again soon.